News team, assemble!
It's back and bigger than ever. It's the Unofficial 40 from Soonerscoop.com. Now, here's the entire Sooner Scoop crew. Carey, Josh, Eddie, and Bob.
All right, we are back. It is the Unofficial 40 right here on Soonerscoop.com. I can tell it has reached a boiling point officially. George looked at me like thinking that somehow I had slipped his name into the pod this week, just expecting, and then to just see his emotions come crashing down when he heard Bob.
Just another disappointment. That's all
From me,
Yeah.
you're saying.
I mean, it is what it is.
You want to lodge some complaints to start here this morning?
No complaints.
I guess it is afternoon. That's part of the problem. Why I've been so disappointing today. The NBA is killing me. I'm just going to tell you. 9:30 start last night. Such bullshit. I mean, my God, 9:30.
It's better than the 10:42 start that you had on the East Coast last night.
We don't care about the East Coast elite, Eddie.
I do. I consider myself part of it.
I can see that. Absolutely. All right. We are here. It's playoff madness. We can't really discuss who's going to what because there may be official channels working to we get this at the radio station all the time, like all the interns, like T-Bag is one of our producers in the morning. He was the guy that was out at the airport, if you saw the video, took his shirt off with Thundor. He was out all night. He did a fantastic job, but all the youngs in Oklahoma City are trying to finagle their way into tickets right now, and Are you gonna at least go over to Scissortail, George, and try and see if you can pick something up that way?
Maybe. I was texting some buddies earlier about maybe heading down there around 5, maybe a little before, to see if we can't win some tickets. We're checking the prices. We're looking into things.
It is a huge ticket tonight in Oklahoma City. What are ticket prices looking like?
Over 300 for
this is nosebleeds.
Well, no, just the club level. You can get into the building for probably 200 if you want to sit up in Loud City.
I think it's safe to say this game and every game that happens from here on out, if there is another game in Oklahoma City, is the biggest game for the Thunder since 2016. 8 years.
And it's such a bizarre thing. I know you said you were having a discussion with your girlfriend about this, but for us, I know, George, you and I have talked about that. We hate this. We love it, but we also hate it. Just the anxiety that goes along with having something. And look, I understand people out there, they're not going to get this. They're like, well, why don't you feel the same way about the Sooners? It's we have to kind of separate ourselves. We go in the press box, and the first thing they announce is there's no cheering in the press box. Eddie's down on the field. Do they have is there any kind of a edict that they give to the people on the sideline? I don't know.
No, I don't think so. I mean, but
like you said, you've been in a press box before.
Good luck trying to video record something while you're cheering and moving around. That's not exactly gonna elicit the best video.
It's a job. Our job is to cover Oklahoma,
right? And it's not to be up there cheering and cussing and cursing the team when they're not doing well. I mean, look, all of us grew up. Your dad played at OU, George. I mean, Eddie, you and I, Josh, we all went to OU. We all have gone to games as students, as fans. But once you sit in a press box, it's a professional, environment. You're expected to behave yourself, and I've spent 20 years watching games, reacting by tweeting or writing down on the message boards or whatever. You making notes, whatever. You're trying to follow along every detail of the game and stay level-headed and report after it's over and talk about it after it's over. So I guess it's always a good discussion to have with people. This is what our job is. And we like to see OU win. I think we can all admit that because it makes our lives...
It's good for business.
It's good for business. It makes our lives easier.
Or suck. It's either one.
Either suck really bad or be really good.
You're having coaching searches. I mean, you don't want to be in
Oh, you mean you don't want to be like Josh and I and own a website for 18 years where the coaching staff never changes? I would never want to run a website in the state of Iowa. That's for sure. Their basketball coach just resigned after 24 years.
Yeah.
Kirk Ferentz, I believe, is still the longest tenured coach in college football.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Josh will tell you, that's terrible for business.
Mediocrity does not pay the bills.
You don't want to be in
Lincoln Riley doing what he did, as much as it tore apart the fan base, probably the best thing that ever happened for the site in terms of our growth and subscribers and all that stuff.
People want to care, good, bad, otherwise. Like be awful, be great, be something. But I mean, that's like Kirk Ferentz has done nothing to be worthy of being fired. But at the same time, he's done nothing that inspires you either. At least he hasn't in quite a while. So
I'd say that offense.
That's awful.
I'd say that offense he's been throwing out there for 20 years is worth being fired in this day and age.
Fair.
To your point, though, Carey, it's like last year you go back and you look at, like, for example, our YouTube page. The most views we got on stuff was after they beat Texas. It's like, when they win,
the Sights and Sounds got 50,000 views
And so it's good for business, but we're there to report. Whereas the Thunder,
we don't have to do all that stuff.
I don't give a shit. I am just screaming my face off, and and I've been a fan of the Thunder since I was a little kid. When they came to Oklahoma City, it was such a big deal, and obviously being from Tulsa, it's a little different. But I think there's just so much pride in the Thunder, from the people in the state, and just the narrative around the state and the city and all of that. And I think there's just a little extra juice in this one because it is Dallas, and a lot of us have friends from Dallas. I mean, some of my best friends live in Dallas, and so there's a lot of shit talking going on between the two cities, and it makes it kind of more fun, but it also makes it also less fun because you're like, man, I really hate this team.
I think one of the most interesting parts too is
Luka
watching a game with
awful,
George and the homophobic slurs that he dispels throughout the four quarters.
Yeah, I forgot. I was about to say we have not watched a game together, Eddie, but we definitely watched game.
Yeah,
2
we
together.
did, and it did not go well.
We're heading for our first employee-unemployed lawsuit for slander.
Yeah, it could be.
Yeah, I was. I do need to calm down a little bit. I think I get a little too into the game sometimes, but that's what Luka does to me. Okay?
Who told you that?
Several people.
That's the playoffs. That's the emotion of playoff basketball. It's good to have that back. It's good to have that fear. I think Steve Bullard on Twitter said it best earlier today. He's like, I have not been this nervous for a basketball game since the day before yesterday.
I will say this about covering OU football. There is one situation that makes me feel kind of sick to my stomach like this Thunder playoff does. It should be pretty easy to guess what game that is.
Rose Bowl?
No, it's a yearly thing.
OU Texas?
Sitting in the press box of OU Texas is a little bit nauseating because it's such a huge game, and that the emotional swings of that could not cripple your business, but it's very important for OU to win that game because that sets everything up for the rest of the season. You're in early October, so there are, and I would say yes, there are business ramifications there, but that's the one game where I can definitely say I really want OU to win that.
You know what I really hate about the press box situation, and particularly
it's a
at OU
vacuum
Texas,
you can't hear anything.
Yeah. That is the strangest thing for me being on the field for the last 10 years.
Like when you sit, I don't think they've had us sitting in the second level in a while, but when you sit up there, it's half booster, half media, and then I
think the last time I was up on the second level of the press box was Southwestern Bell had stuff out in the press box. It's been a minute.
But yeah, that makes it tough because you have people screaming and yelling and you're trying to do your job, but it is a vacuum. You can't hear anything.
I hate that. I hate the idea of sitting in dead silence.
That's also my favorite day of the year, though. I love that game.
Yeah.
Just
awesome.
There's
truly nothing better than
pregame and the band. I love when the Texas band comes out and they do the da-na-na-na-na-na, and then the whole OU crowd
awesome. And I love OU awesome. Texas. It's such a different day compared to every other game you go to because you get there early. You want to get there early.
You get sucked into a vacuum where you walk out and it's like, all right, so what else has happened today?
Yes.
What are the scores from other games? Because even within the Cotton Bowl, you get they put it up on the big board throughout the game, but you don't really ever get like you don't have cell phone service, so you have no idea what's going on.
Yeah, the
outside
cell
of
phone
world.
situation always sucks. And now there's like they've already started renovations. I'm curious to see. I need to drive
they
by
have.
there this weekend and see if you can notice a difference.
Is it fully cosmetic? Like they're not doing anything inside the stadium. It's more like the breezeways and
Right. I hope the bathrooms.
I hope not. That's part of the experience.
Is hearing that the bathrooms have overflowed after the first quarter was even over.
It's kind of like the troughs in Norman. Like I hope those never go away.
There's no way they keep those when the East Side renovation happens.
I mean, I hope they find a way, and if not, I hope I can buy one of the troughs. How cool would that be?
That would be pretty cool.
To have one of the troughs
in
at
your
house.
apartment.
Yeah.
You'd have to put it in storage, and then someday when you decide to build a house,
you install it.
You'd have to find a way in your home's plan to incorporate it.
I bet you could. You could probably do that in like the man
Be like
cave.
a cool, I don't know if it'd be cool or not, but like you'd have to put that like in a pool area or something.
I'm thinking like in a bathroom. You just have a trough instead. Like I have a couple buddies that have like actual, I don't know, like what they're called, like the stand-up pissers inside their house.
Urinals, yeah.
Yeah,
Stand-up
urinal, I
urinals.
guess.
Would you put ice in it?
No, I would use it. I would use it for the restroom.
Is there anybody, like Cock of the Walk, I think is the last place I remember that had ice in the trough.
I haven't been to Cock of the Walk in literally probably
Still
a
in
decade.
business, so people are going.
Yeah, it's
That
still
makes me
open.
really sad to hear that, Eddie. I was a hardcore Cock of the Walk guy. I spent a lot of time there.
Yeah, I think the vibe has shifted a little bit over there. These
That's not
That's
good.
what- that's what I've
okay.
heard, too.
Well, I
Yeah.
understand.
It is on the furthest edges of Western, so
yeah, on the southernmost border. Not to disparage Cookies. Cookies is a great place, but more of a Sapango guy.
what is
Oh God.
what is
Wow.
VZDs?
There's a name I hadn't heard.
There's nothing in it.
Nothing's in
It's
VZDs.
still just a open lot, I guess.
Josh,
Like an
you'll be
open
happy
building.
to
That's
know
a crime.
Yeah, it is a crime.
the SIP is alive and well these days. Sapango.
Okay.
Yeah, that's kind of
my
become like
God.
the go-to spot.
That's where
Josh.
I met my girlfriend there
Yeah.
at Sapango.
I would say that 90% of the time, if I go out in Oklahoma City, it usually make a run through Sapango.
Would
Yeah.
it be a crime if they ever renovated Flips? You just have to always keep it that way until it's no longer in business.
Yeah, I think it's pretty good. Still a really good patio. Mm-hmm. It's a really good place to go get drinks and food. It's another place that
Is Flips worth going to if you're not on the patio? Like that was
Yeah.
always my feeling. Like if there wasn't a reason to sit out there, I didn't want to go.
Still
to
good
Flips.
food.
There's
I mean,
an ambiance inside that offers a pretty good occasion.
it's not a dump.
No,
I mean,
not at all. They've kept it up.
I don't mean it like that. I just mean I like the patio. That was my primary motivation.
Yeah, the patio is good. I'm just thankful that it didn't get burned down in the Canton fire that was started for insurance money that we've never gotten to the bottom to.
is that the apartment building?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which I noticed the other day now has a parking garage. Like they just put a parking garage right where that thing was, like the structure. I think it was built already. It was the parking garage for the apartment complex, and they just, I guess, decided to leave it. I don't know what they're doing with it.
All right. Mark it, Eddie. You can start listening here. We've
Get
got
some OU talk there.
Yeah, we had some
Good
OU
OU
talk. Yeah, there's some good stuff there.
Oh, hey, guys, I did to bring it back to an OU thing, and we can do this quickly. I kind of, when you guys started talking about like, OU Texas, and it's so big and it's so different than every other week, do you feel like that shifts a little bit in the SEC where you're going to be also playing probably Alabama, Georgia, Tennessee, Florida, like all these other major
No.
brands?
I'm going to say no, right? I'm
I
gonna
don't think
stop
it
you and just say
lessens
no.
it, but does it change it a little
No,
bit?
I think it'll
It's its
heighten
own
it, if
thing.
anything else.
It's its own entity. I think OU and Texas being in the SEC now, knowing that game matters in the scale of college football. To me, it has more college football implications than it's ever had before.
I think OU Texas doesn't change, but to your
Playoff,
point, Josh, I think there's more games that you get not the OU Texas feeling, because I think the OU Texas feeling is unlike any other, but there are more games where you are a little bit more amped, a little bit more juiced. The anxiety is like when Alabama comes to town, the anxiety is going to be much higher than when Iowa State came to town. So I think that, to your point, Josh, you're going to feel that feeling maybe a little bit more than just OU Texas weekend, because you're going to have so many of those huge games. And even like, I think Missouri, like going to Missouri this year, as much as OU fans want to like just discredit Missouri,
There's
I think
so much
that
tension there.
game is going to be, the juice is going to be very high among the fan base.
Drinkwitz is going to say something stupid probably in the week leading up to it.
100%.
Yeah, it just depends on how Missouri does. It depends how OU does. Hopefully, November 9th is a very meaningful, impactful game in terms of not just the SEC standings, but the college football playoffs.
Did you see Missouri's over-under for next year?
8.5.
I think it's
Was
up
it
to
9.5?
9.5.
9.5.
That's a big number.
Gandered at those when they were sent out this week, but I didn't really dive into them.
I don't think they have a tough non-con, though.
But what is Vegas left to do in that situation when they've been one of the leaders in NIL acquisitions? I mean, you only have so much information you can go on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that you look at the steps that they made a year ago and getting to 10 wins or over 10 wins. They won 11 games, right? I think that it's expected that thing kind of stabilizes itself.
No, but I think OU Texas will always stay and maybe even elevate itself being in the SEC. But George is right. Like, going to LSU, when Alabama comes here, and there's so much unknown. I mean, like, I know a lot of people excited about going to Ole Miss just because of what they've heard. We got buddies that cover Ole Miss that, we've probably as close to as other people and talk to them about it, over the years. So there's some anticipation there just on our end. But, yeah, I mean, this is why you are in the SEC is because you're not playing Baylor and TCU and Iowa State. I mean, you're playing Alabama and Tennessee and Georgia and, even Florida, even though they've, fallen a little bit. I mean, those are big names. I don't want to say they're all blue bloods, but, like, even Missouri. I mean,
yeah. Have you seen some of the lines that have come out from DraftKings on the games next year?
No, I haven't.
Let me run through these real quick, and you guys just tell me if you think OU covers. Okay? OU minus 39.5 versus Temple.
Sure.
Why not?
OU minus 5 versus Tennessee.
God, there's so many, like,
I have a feeling that all the
something.
SEC games are going to be single digits.
OU minus 3 at Auburn.
See? But they're favored.
Yeah.
I think Auburn
I think
that are
OU
on,
loses that outright or covers clear. Like,
Auburn,
covers easy. Yeah.
Either a blowout or
of
a
all
loss.
the teams on Oklahoma's schedule, I think that, and maybe this is the way that SEC folks feel, but I know nothing about Auburn.
Yeah.
I know absolutely zero.
I saw where Hugh Freeze came out and he kind of did almost like not as bad as a Dabo, but almost like a Brian Kelly, where he's like kind of defending their position on NIL.
Well, they basically, in terms of them not paying a quarterback, I think is how it came up.
Is that what it was?
He would rather develop a quarterback than spend a couple million to get a guy that is kind of
isn't
commodity.
there quarterback Peyton Thorne from like Michigan State or something?
I think he was there.
Who's a total jag.
Yeah.
But I to like the way Kelly worded that, I know what he was trying to say. He just said it all wrong. Like with Freeze, I didn't have a problem with what he said because other than Dylan Gabriel, guys, who in that market would you pay $1 million for? It sure as shit is not the guy Will Howard. No way on earth. No how.
No.
I don't understand the fact. I'm a guy that doesn't think Ohio State improved at quarterback. I think Kyle McCord's probably a better player than Will Howard. He just had bigger expectations.
Yeah. Let me run through these real quick. Texas plus 8.5.
Sorry.
No, you're good. Texas plus 8.5.
It's a big number for a rivalry game.
Yeah. Ole Miss plus 6. This is OU is plus 6.
I tend
When
to.
was the last time OU was a touchdown underdog? I know it's not a full touchdown, but
Well, Texas last year
were they a full touchdown? It was a plus 7,
something. It was
plus
around
7.5.
there.
I want to say it was almost 9 or something.
Yeah.
I thought it was 5.
Missouri plus 4. Alabama plus 1.5. LSU plus 5.
I mean,
so they're underdogs. I think in every game.
I can
after
say
Texas,
that's
except for
never
South Carolina
happened
and
since
Maine.
Stoops was.
We're going to spend the next 4 months talking about a bunch of these games that are very much like make or break type games in terms of what kind of season Oklahoma can have if they can get over the 7.5 number. You would think though that with the schedule that they have in September specifically, you can get to 5-0, and then all of a sudden, I think 7.5 is obviously very doable.
But here's the thing: back to the Hugh Freeze stuff. I I understand coaches can have principles that they want to live by, that they can, the roster and the locker room, all that stuff's important, the culture. But at some point, fans, unless you have a nice win in NIL, the fans just aren't going to buy into anything that you're saying in those regards.
I think at different schools, it's different. At somewhere like Auburn, I think it could be definitely doable. At Ole Miss and Missouri, they've bought in without real true success, haven't they?
Right. But I'm saying, like, at Oklahoma, until they got Dominic Williams, and it was because of other things like Caden Green, but like they needed that, not so much because they needed a defensive lineman, but they just needed a win. They needed an NIL win. When they see Missouri doing all that, when they see Ole Miss doing all that, it built up into a thing, just like Clemson. Like Clemson fans, like Dabo has literally, his seat has gotten hotter because of NIL. Because they have no wins.
It's just an outright refusal to use it, too. I mean, it's there for you to help you, and they have no interest in it.
I guess he said today they went after a quarterback. They just didn't give one.
Well, it doesn't help, too, that Clemson, he's saying all those things, and they're not winning.
Yeah.
Like, if they were winning,
nobody cares.
And they weren't doing all that, like they weren't using the portal, and they had NIL, and they didn't have NIL money, whatever it was, and they were winning, then it's like, okay, well, maybe Dabo's just smarter than everybody. But right now, he looks stupider than everybody.
He's coaching with an attitude that he has the team he had 3 years ago, and it's clearly fallen off. And I'm sure the fans are like, why won't he admit it's fallen off? Because if he won't admit that, then he's not going to fix anything, and there's obviously things that need to be fixed. And so he's living in denial, and oh my God, our coach is not going to fix this. I think that's how Clemson fans feel right now, because he doesn't think he has to fix anything.
I mean, if you're a Clemson fan right now, you got to be so pissed off by some of the stuff that Dabo's saying.
But here's the thing, though. Like, and we've all known this, and I'm sure Clemson fans don't want to admit this, but they've always been closer to OSU's level, Oklahoma State's level of booster activity and money than they have the Alabamas and the Georgias. Like they have been in a geographic location where they can get the same players that Alabama and Georgia are getting, but financially, just the overall health of that school, it is way below Alabama and Georgia. Josh, I mean, you kind of know this.
No, I don't disagree. I was actually looking it up. I mean, they're when you look at total revenue and stuff, I mean, they are considerably off the mark. I mean, they're $30 million behind places like Oklahoma, Penn State, that kind of stuff. I mean, they're fringy top 20. So, and some of that is obviously ACC and the athletic department, and that, and things beyond the control of boosters. But it's one of those things that people kind of forget what Clemson was for the majority of their lifetime, because they've had this incredible run. And again, when you're like that, you've got to take advantage of every avenue. You can't, be doing things to limit yourself just because you've created some nonsense rule, like some idea that you're trying to win, like you're trying to make the best team possible. And while there's 15 guys on that team that are super excited they didn't get sent home because Dabo made them a promise, there's 70 other guys that want to win football games and are going to lose some they shouldn't just because he's trying to play the nice guy.
Or trying to, keep building it like people were building it 5 years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, they're a product of kind of their own success, aren't they? That they played for a national championship for 5 years from 2015 to 2019, won 2 of them. And I think that there's a little bit of arrogance there with a lot of things that Dabo does. Even back then, he was doing it, and they were just getting away with it because they were able to develop at an extremely high level. Now, good news is a bunch of the guys that helped him get to that point are now coaching in Norman.
What other coach would have the balls to make that statement? To be like, well, listen here, idiots. We take transfers every year. They're called high school players. What are you like? Stop it! Like it takes some real balls to look at your fans in the face and say something like that.
It would have to be a guy like Saban who, decided this shit ain't for me anymore. And he left. I don't think there's anybody else out there, I don't want to say dumb, but brash enough to have that. I mean, the closest thing is Brian Kelly, and he's never won near that level.
Yeah. Well, and all the guys that maybe would say something like that because they, I guess for a lack of better terms, don't give a fuck, they're all winning and they're playing the game because of them being active in the portal. See, like a Dan Lanning. Could you think of two people that are more opposite than Dabo and Dan Lanning when their principles are probably about the same just in terms of what they want to do on the field?
Well, and guys, look at the next 10 years. Dabo's got 2 national titles. Who are you betting on to win the next one, Dabo or Dan Lanning? I'm taking Dan Lanning 8 days a week, and it's not even close.
No doubt.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be really interesting to see who falls off because of all of this, and we're just at the beginning of it. Like, especially some of the schools that are trying so hard to stay relevant, like in Iowa State, do they fall off because of this? I mean, I think Jamie Pollard came out the other day, maybe it was yesterday, and said, look, we're not building a new wrestling facility that we were planning to build because we're now moving forward with the expectations that 20% of our revenues are going to go to pay for players, or $20 million, I think he said, is going to have to be set aside to clear payroll, basically. So they can't sit here and for Iowa State, it's not for everybody, but for them and the type of school they are, the size they are, the donor base they have to suspend all facilities until this stuff sorts itself out. I don't know if you saw that, George.
And this is why the outrage a few years ago from Oklahoma State was such a joke, because the difference, that 20%, is the difference in the TV revenue from the Big 12 and the SEC.
Right.
So OU doesn't have to change a damn thing. They just get to say, hey, now we have all this much bigger wallet than we used to have, and yet we can still afford to update, Eldell Mitchell or whatever it is. They don't have to make these drastic changes because they thought ahead and they planned ahead. And I'm sorry that made people mad, but it was always the right decision.
Would have been nice to have a new Lloyd Noble as all this shit's going down. Boy. Anyway, look, the future, everybody's trying to figure it out. It's murky. And, I think at least it looks like the NCAA is being proactive on a settlement with whatever entities that are suing them to try and get to this employee model. But we don't know. It's looking into the future. We don't have that kind of perfect vision. The only person who does have that kind of perfect vision is Eddie Radosevich because of Enjoy, and it is the Enjoy Vision, fresh perspective, look around. And I don't know, maybe Eddie will tell us what the future holds.
If I knew, I would not tell you all, and I would probably be in Vegas already, even though gambling is somewhat kind of legal in some of these parts for some of us. Enjoy Vision is the best laser vision center in Oklahoma City. It's not even close. The combination of mind-blowing technology, experienced eyeball surgeons, and exceptional patient care was life-changing for me. What they're doing for the Unofficial 40 listeners, they're giving $400 off of LASIK. All you got to do is go to enjoywithme.com. That is letter NJOY with me.com, and use promo code U40 if you are so inclined to get your eyes fixed. $400 off LASIK. Enjoy Vision. This is where you LASIK.
Sorry, I was laughing with George about something unrelated. So, Josh, I think we can get back to some OU football talk. And by the way, a lot of that will be happening this season. And one of the things I just mentioned about facilities is, like, George was asked, or George and Eddie were asked that last week on our live stream. And that's something we're going to try and start doing a lot more during the off season. But we enjoy that. Enjoy the comments from people is probably my favorite part of it. Our guy Grimlock is always trying to mix it up in there. We often have like Longhorn fans showing up just to mess with people. So that's going to become more of a standard thing where we'll have live streams. And especially with the studios almost being done, I think we're just a couple of weeks away from having all the construction wrapped up. So that's a very good thing. No more checks to write. That'll be nice. I know coming up this week we also have Alex Storacco on the Family Business talking a little softball as the regionals get set to get underway here on the 17th, which is 2 days from now. So OU, the number 2 overall national seed. We had the stickball episode, doing quite well on our YouTube page, so go check that out. And always, just keep checking the website. We're going to start doing our off-season. We've already started, actually, our off-season series. A lot of content coming. You're going to have off-season meetings that we're going to have some news coming out, I think, here toward the end of the month a little bit. And, of course, Josh starting his spring football tour. You were checking out a couple of running back commitments this week, and I know you saw plenty of DeMarco Murray running around out there. Does DeMarco chat you up at all? Do you recognize? Do you acknowledge each other? I mean, I'm trying to think. Like Eddie was in school with DeMarco, but he wasn't out there with you. I bet DeMarco would hit up Eddie if he was just out there shooting.
100%. I know, and like, there's a part of me, like some guys like that I that I knew from their playing days. Like I would absolutely feel confident, like, hey man, kind of catching up and talking to him a little bit. A guy like DeMarco, I'm like, I'm going to let him lead this. Like, if he wants to acknowledge me, cool. Because I'm like in my Sooner Scoop gear. There's no doubt who I am. Like, he saw me. If there's a nod, that's fine. But like, coaches are weird in public places like that because, in a practice setting with you all, like everybody knows the rules. Like in a situation like that, of course, the rules are known. But there's a lot of guys that are like, I don't really care. And they'll talk to me about anything. And
I don't know if there are any rules anymore, Josh.
Mm-hmm. That's fair. And, and like with DeMarco, part of me wanted to be like, we're sitting there watching Jonathan Hatton, and I wanted to be like, I remember, sitting at OU's camp when he rolled out. Like, I can still remember what he was wearing, all his Gorman gear. They've got so many campers that show up in, like, OU stuff. And, he was in blue and orange from, like, head to toe at OU's camp when I think going into like his junior year or something, and you're like, holy crap, this guy's incredible.
By the way, you say that, and this just flashed through my brain. It was one of the last spring practices we went out to for interviews, and it shocked me so much, but I'm walking into practice, and walking right past me is David White, and it was so shocking. I was like, that was Whitey. Like, what is he doing here? But
he's the head coach at Westmore.
He's head coach at Westmore.
I didn't realize that.
He's the head coach at Westmore, and he's putting
I guess
together
I
like
did hear that, but
all Sooner staff over there at Westmore.
Oh, is that where? Who was it?
I think Dom's down there.
Was it
now,
Dom Franks?
Or no? I think Dom is at Tulsa.
Tulsa, yeah.
Dom's at the University of Tulsa.
Dom's at Tulsa.
DeMontre Hurst.
DeMontre Hurst. That's
somebody. And there's a couple other guys I want to say.
Is Broyles over there?
Brandon Braxton, I think, has joined the Westmore staff, if that's correct, Josh. I know they've been up at Booker T for a second.
I'm trying to flip through it here because he made DeMarcus Granger is his defensive line coach.
Oh, wow.
Uh-huh. Yeah, so I mean, he's pulled up some names. Man. There's no doubt.
I think it's going to probably be a pretty good staff. He has good group to work with over there as well. I don't think that they haven't been short on
He'll
success.
never get the credit, but I mean, like, people forget he built Gorman into what it is. Like, he started all of that.
And that's why I brought his name
They've
up.
taken it farther, but he the original, like, stars at Gorman were Ryan Reynolds and DeMarco Murray.
Well, and that was Fertitta. Was the Fertittas were involved a little bit in Gorman back in that day when
the UFC Fertittas, not the Houston Fertitta family,
not the Tillman.
Are they related?
I believe they
Tillman
are.
Fertitta, and is that his brother? I guess.
I think they're brothers or cousins.
I think that's right.
You always hear about Tillman Fertitta, and he's the guy that I think gave most of the money for Kelvin's arena.
He is the Boone Pickens of Houston athletics.
Yeah.
Here's one I'd missed. Joaquin Iglesias is their wide receivers coach.
Wow. I need to just go over to practice.
It's legitimately like a former Oklahoma football player who's who list.
That's incredible. But no, I mean,
fans are going to be showing up getting autographs from the coaching staff.
And I sidetracked you, but DeMarco coming to camp, Bishop Gorman. I mean, Whitey was the one bringing, that started bringing those people up here.
Oh yeah. I mean, because I remember the big tight end from Gorman that ended up going to USC, and it was a shock because everybody from Gorman just went to Oklahoma, and it was like that was kind of the moment you're like, oh, the Gorman thing's closed now. Like you just assumed Justin Chasen, I think was how he said his name. There's Chasen and Shashawn. It depends on what area
there was an offensive lineman.
It depends on what area of the country you're from. Yeah, absolutely. But yeah, with coaches, like I said, it's funny you ask, Harry, because somebody in the thread when I was going around the state that day kind of said, what do you do in these situations? So it's like I let them lead. Like I'm not going to make any coach uncomfortable because there's 20 other coaches and they don't want to be the uncool kid talking to the reporter. Like I get it. It's fine. And some coaches do want to talk to me and will make a point too. And that's great. And if they don't, that's fine. Like I don't lose any sleep over. I don't need the cool points, which is not, it's not unanimous in this industry, I guess you'd say. But no, to get to Hatton though, he's outstanding. He's a big physical back. You can see what DeMarco likes so much. He is 6 foot, 205, runs, in the 10.6s and the 100 meters, physical guy. There's not a lot about his game that you'd say, I don't see how that's going to work at the college level. He checks a lot of the boxes you're looking for. And then you're constantly reminding yourself he's still got 2 years of high school left.
Yeah, but and like you said, you're going to big programs those days, and DeMarco was at both places when you went. But Eddie, do you want to say where the places he went?
Oh, this is cruel. This is mean.
San Antonio Steele High School.
Well, one of them is so easy to say, but you mess it up.
Sabolo Steele. Steele High School in San Antonio, and Acostasita.
That's pretty good.
Ascostacita.
That's pretty good.
Atascocita. Well, the T's in there somewhere.
The Cibolo is the one that I have the issue with because it's just it doesn't seem that hard. But you know what? Nothing surprises us.
Mm-hmm. Oh, now, and I do want to be clear. Murray and OU, I want to say it was Murray and Seth Luttrell were at Torrey Blaylock. They were seeing Atascocita the day before I was there. So they were there. Then I saw DeMarco the next morning, and then I headed back to Atascocita that afternoon. So, I mean, we were just on different ends of I-10, different ends of the day. So, with Torrey, I mean, same deal. Like, we talked about this in the recruiting report yesterday. If DeMarco Murray's got a type right now, it's speed. Like, he just wants guys who can hit home runs. And Torrey Blaylock, we've talked about it. Guy helped set a national record in the 4x1. We talked about in the recruiting report, but I can't get over that 4x1 team would have won the Big Ten. Like, that's absurd. That's just crazy to me.
It's
and
insane.
That wasn't even. I don't know what they set the national record like in mid-season. Like they weren't even, full summer and it's warm and hot and, people are running their best time. So that's just a wild reality to me. But yeah, Torrey can fly. Jonathan Hatton, like I said, is a legit, state, Texas State qualifier. There's a lot of speed coming to that backfield if Oklahoma can, keep those two in the fold. And I certainly heard nothing from either that makes me think that's in any kind of danger.
Josh, I'll ask you a question that I think was asked of you on the subscriber chat recap from this week, or just the subscriber chat on the message board. Is there any concern with Hatton or Torrey Blaylock in terms of the level of commitment that they have to Oklahoma? With some of these guys getting a lot of national pub, I think even more so here moving forward into their junior and then senior season for Blaylock's case.
I think with Blaylock, the connection between Derek, his father, and DeMarco Murray and Torrey, I think that all just works really well. Derek knows what it looks like. He knows what guys should be talking about. Obviously, for those that don't know, Derek played a long time in the NFL. So I think there is a real easy communication between DeMarco and Derek, and then Torrey has a lot of faith. I think it feels kind of like an easy handoff where he's learned from his dad for all these years, and now he goes and plays for DeMarco, who speaks in a similar style, is not going to give him credit for things he hasn't accomplished yet. He's not going to blow him up or let his ego get out of control. And I think Derek likes that, and I think Torrey knows that's good for him.
Is that just as simple as two guys that have been to the top, two professional running backs that know what it takes?
Yeah, Torrey Blaylock's got scholarship offers from across the country, and DeMarco Murray's like, so? Derek Blaylock's like, so? We played in the league for 10 years, man. Like, we don't care at all. Like, that doesn't impress any of us. So I think that is. I think that is just you're going to have to do a lot more to impress me than this, that kind of deal.
The focus is on the process, not the next step.
Yeah. Yeah. And with Jonathan Hatton, again, every time I talk to Jonathan, I try not to make an issue of it, but he seems so solid. I'm always like, it's so early for you. And this spring he's been offered by Alabama. Right? Yeah. This is a kid just finishing up his sophomore year of high school. And this spring he's picked up offers from Alabama, Ohio State, Tennessee. I mean, he's picked up some big offers. And so clearly schools are still trying. But every time I talk to him, kind of like, what's going on? You still feeling good about things? He's like, I found home. Like, I love it there. It's where I want to be. If I could go there this weekend, that's where I'd go. And so you're just like, okay. He's saying the right stuff. Now, mathematically, is it probable that he takes a look around, maybe he steps back? Yeah, it probably is. But he's not doing anything to indicate that. There's no clear sign. He's going to go back up to Oklahoma this summer. I bet he camps, for a day or two. He's just not giving off any feel that there's a concern at this point.
Well, what's helpful too is, we haven't really talked about this, but and I understand people get upset when coaches flirt and stuff like that, but the whole Ohio State thing and DeMarco, it plays in their favor when they've got two young running backs like this. I mean, the chances of them going somewhere else in the next couple of years are very small because they've just given him a pretty big raise, and he is now, I don't know, George, do we think he's in the top 3 running backs, salaried coaches right now in college football?
Oh, DeMarco?
Yeah.
Yeah, he's definitely top 5.
Yeah.
I don't know top 3. Some of these guys have gotten, pretty big bumps.
I don't know what Ohio State hired at. That would be.
And Ohio State's, who was the guy that left Ohio State for Michigan?
Yeah, he's like 900
I think
something.
he might be number 1 right now.
Because I think he was like 830 at Ohio State.
Yeah, something like that.
Tony Alford's the guy's name.
Yeah,
and
sorry.
The interesting thing for all the people, that still will carry on with, the OU's broke. Who did Ohio State go take a guy from? They took it from Oregon, the team that everybody will tell you, they got money. And they do. They 100% do. But if Oklahoma wasn't able to compete, that stuff wouldn't happen. They would have gotten DeMarco Murray.
Yeah, and the fact that they secured him, it helps them. It gives them a leg up to keep a 2026 kid in the fold. Because there's a very little chance that anything's going to change with DeMarco unless he gets an offensive coordinator job or something.
Yeah. Yeah, agreed.
And it would be interesting to just see kind of what that I think that we would probably be talking about, and we being, I guess, the collective OU fan base across social media would be talking about it a little bit better in better terms had the running back thing just not been so damn weird this year. If they're able to go out and have a really good year from the backfield, and a lot of it has to do with what they do up front with the offensive line, but if that running back group can be really good, and then you look at what they have, not just coming in this summer with Taylor Tatum, but then coming in and start stacking classes, I think the DeMarco Murray stardom should start really taking off in terms of being a position coach or whatever is next for him, whether that be offensive coordinator or a head coach at some point.
Well, I think
absolutely. And guys, to be fair, I thought I was a little surprised Ohio State made such a overt run at him because, I don't think the running back room has been bad to date, but it hasn't been exemplary. There hasn't been anything that since he's been there where you're like, wow, look at what he did with this guy or what he did with that guy. It's been solid, and that I can't say much more for it than that. But if he's going to, I think running back maybe more than any position on the field, it's not that hard to evaluate a really good running back. On tape, you can see it or you don't, and that's kind of the way it goes. There's certainly always some surprises, But it's not coincidental that like Adrian Peterson was a 5-star, Darren McFadden was a 5. You go through the list, a lot of the great NFL backs were really highly recruited guys. That's not an accident because it's not a tricky position. You kind of have it or you don't.
Yeah,
so if you can land elite guys, then you're in good shape.
There wasn't a lot of back and forth on Leonard Fournette or Joe Mixon or
Yeah, exactly.
It was like, okay, those dudes are just different, and it just depends on where you go and part of DeMarco's problem has been injuries. I mean, he's been a little bit unlucky, and you know what's kind of bizarre too is I see where like the Crimson and Cream has their the people they represent go on local KREF stations, like that's who like Toby Rowland works for, and Plank and those guys. And Javonte Barnes was on there, and I just saw some social they sent out about him just gushing about how much he loves Oklahoma and stuff, and it was just like, okay, like it's just so weird.
It's been a constant. I think the only people that are ever like questioning Javonte Barnes, I guess, love for the university or relationship with DeMarco Murray are the people on the outside. Like us, and then people that just can't make sense of what happened to him a year ago. I will say too that like DeMarco, you go back to like 2023, would it have been, or 2022. Eric Gray had a hell of a year. It just got basically kind of covered up because Bijan Robinson was the best running back in the country.
I was just looking through the stats. Who were the first running backs that DeMarco recruited to OU? Was it McGowan? Seth McGowan, was he in that?
I think that's right.
Because I'm trying to think, okay, who are some of DeMarco's guys that he recruited out of high school?
Mikey Henderson, was he one of his first ones?
No, I think he would have already been around, wouldn't he?
Yeah, I think that's right.
Because I'm trying to think.
Well, Seth and Mikey were the same class, but Mikey wasn't really that's not really what he was recruited as.
Wasn't a running
my
back.
point is that I think looking at it, Gavin Sawchuk and Javonte Barnes were kind of his first two guys that he really recruited at a high level, highly ranked guys that, like, if he can get one of those two to work out, those are the guys that you point to and say, look at the development, look at the way that they panned out in their career, got to the NFL, whatever. Because he obviously, DeMarco inherited Kennedy Brooks, who had a great year under DeMarco back in, 2021. And then Eric Gray, like you said, but he was a transfer guy. Again, he inherited Eric Gray, I believe. Or maybe he helped get him out of the program.
No, he was part of that. Yeah, he brought him in.
But like, who are some guys out of high school that he's recruited that have panned out? I think you have to kind of point towards, he needs one of Gavin Sawchuk or Javonte Barnes to work out. And that's not to say he hasn't done a really good job. I think that he has done a solid job, like Josh said, but it would be helpful for his resume if Gavin Sawchuk went out this year and had like 1,200 yards rushing.
And he's capable of that. I mean, I think everything that I've seen from Gavin since that Florida State bowl game, like, I see a back that could be a number one for just about anybody. I mean, and I think it'll only get better. But, I mean, the fact remains, Javonte Barnes, either we have to figure out if he's a difference maker at running back or he's not. Whether it's health or whatever, all that matters is, can he produce?
Yeah.
Because if he can't, you got to move on. And I think he'll get, with the way that DeMarco is recruiting, he'll get passed over. And then he won't love Oklahoma as much. So, all right. Outside of that, Josh, I mean, you've got a whole recruiting report. It's up on YouTube right now. It's been up since last night. I would encourage you guys to go check that out. Anything that you didn't hit on yesterday, Josh, that in the last 24 hours that is worth bringing up?
No, not we'll have a full interview, and I know Eddie. For those who've seen the recruiting report and kind of wonder where it was, we're going to have a full video interview with Smith Arogbo, the big defensive end from Leaf Hastings. We decided to wait until I could go back, get some highlights to run with the video, just to make it a little bit more complete, let everybody really see him. That should happen tomorrow, so hopefully we'll have it up quickly after that. But again, with Smith Arogbo, I was kind of thinking like, okay, Texas is going to be pretty hard to beat, and they may still be. I definitely think they're a huge factor in this. But just listen to him talk about Oklahoma and how much he loves the way they plan to use him. He talked a lot, kind of a note that's interesting to OU fans. He talked a lot about, Venables and Alley, telling him we're going to be multiple up front. We're going to do some stuff where you might stand up. We're going to do some stuff where you put your hand in the dirt and you're a 4-down guy. And he really talked about just liking to do a lot of different things rather than just kind of being. I don't think he said one trick pony, but something kind of along that. I don't have to be just one thing.
All right. Yeah, I mean, I think outside of just recruiting right now, we're just looking forward to, summer camps and barbecue and everything that goes with that and what visits are coming and going. Now, we do have some portal stuff brewing a little bit. Still, portal stuff.
Portal never stops.
Portal activity is still going.
It never ceases.
Oh, and by the way, breaking news. General Booty has found a home, and I'm sure a lot of fan bases are disappointed that they don't have a Booty.
You know who he go ahead.
He is going to Louisiana Monroe, and make sure you circle it on your calendars. He
100%.
will be playing in Austin, Texas, September 21st against Texas.
Pretty cool.
General Booty upsetting the Longhorns, September 21st. Book it.
Louisiana Monroe.
Well, if they give him the ball,
how much will that feed the fire if he should have played?
I know.
Texas 2 years ago?
I thought of the same thing.
Oh,
Josh.
man.
But yeah, no, good for General Booty. But OU is, speaking of Louisiana Monroe, OU is set to, or at least expecting to host Louisiana Monroe defensive lineman Aiden Huntington.
Oh, is this a trade?
Yeah, I was
Is this a straight up trade?
It could be. It could be.
Is there anything from Monroe, Louisiana that we need to be expecting to get back as well? I don't know if it's a player for player.
Cash considerations.
Yeah, I don't know if that matches up. Surely there's a good food spot in Monroe that they could send up a couple samplings.
They're going to stock Thunderbird with some Gators, man. It's going to be fine.
Can you imagine if we do get to the point in college football where teams are trading players?
Yeah, and you start throwing in I don't know what the cash considerations would be, like a couple Kappas from OU for a really good 5-star defensive tackle.
Oh boy.
That's trouble.
I think it'd be better to select
the
from
FBI gets involved at that point.
Kappa, Theta, Pi Phi, Chi-O, Alpha Phi. I mean, you start getting past there. I don't want to, really
easy
take
Harrison
shots
Butker.
at anybody.
Easy.
Yeah, I guess you could throw Tridelt in there as well.
I mean, the fact that you're still rating sororities is a little troubling. That you're still keeping in touch with who is above others.
Well, for more on that, you can subscribe to my Patreon, which we go over every week.
Anyways, Pete Nakos is about to have a story up on On3, I believe, about Aiden Huntington.
What kind of player is that in terms of replacing Jermaine Lole?
Well, they're different players.
I'd finally gotten it down, and the motherfucker leaves.
Clearly, Huntington is not a nose tackle, and Lolo could have played either, I believe, nose or 3-tech. This guy's definitely a 3-tech. He's 6'1", 281, definitely a smaller guy, but he was very productive at Louisiana Monroe this last year. 8.5 sacks, 3 forced fumbles, 62 total tackles. So that's pretty good. I believe his pressure rates were pretty high. So he's a rotational guy. I think that OU is looking for somebody, specifically a grad transfer, somebody with some experience, and this guy would fit that mold. I think On3 has him ranked as like the 6th best defensive lineman in the transfer portal. So that's good. But I don't think this is a guy that is like a super, he's not going to come in and start day one, but I do think that he could be in their 6-man rotation. We'll see. I know that a lot of people thought he was going to end up at Cal. He's visited Duke as well. So, not the biggest program. So I feel like
he's very smart if he's looking at Cal and Duke.
Yeah, sure.
I know Tulane was very interested early on too. So not the biggest schools out there. I think LSU tried to get in the mix. I don't think they're going to get in the mix.
Have they decided they're not playing 2024 with defensive linemen?
I don't know, because a lot of people thought that they were going to land the Javier Suggs kid. I don't think he's committed yet. Which is maybe a little concerning for LSU. But I don't know what LSU's.
It's amazing.
What LSU's doing.
What was that
They've
line?
whiffed on a lot.
What was that line? That OU against LSU line? +6 or something?
Minus, I think it was +5.
+5. It was +6 down in Oxford.
Oxford, yep. So
But I mean, I got to think for LSU, like that's going to affect. It's get to the point where it's going to affect their season.
Yeah, they only have 2 scholarship defensive linemen on roster right now.
Oh my God.
I mean, that's going to get Brian Kelly fired.
So,
and you're going to go on and say we're not going to buy players. In that situation, you're buying friggin' players.
I think they're trying to buy players. They're just not. They're not paying. You know, they're not paying what has to be paid. I think they have people lined up. Like, yeah, we'll get involved in NIL, but I think we're finding out that LSU just doesn't have the money that maybe we thought they did.
I think a lot of schools are in that boat.
Yeah.
By the way. I don't think it's just LSU. I think there's a lot of schools that don't have the money.
It kind of highlights what we have talked about really essentially from day one with the NIL stuff in terms of how abnormal what is happening in Oxford or Knoxville or, I guess Eugene to a certain extent. It's not happening grand scale like it is, like a lot of people think it is out there.
But here's the thing. It's like the people that have money.
Columbia.
And I've talked to, OU, BMDs, big money donors. Like, they want their money. They don't want their money to go to secure a football player. They want their money to put their name on a building on campus or, to make the lives better of the students that are going to campus, that are going to college, so they can have a great college experience because they love their college experience. Like, that's a lot of motivation for people to give money.
Yeah, unfortunately, I don't think that's necessarily the way that works anymore.
But Ole Miss, Ole Miss and Missouri obviously have donors that are like, we want to fucking win at football.
Yeah, you know how you have a really good college experience?
You have a great football team.
Your school wins a lot of football games, and you get to be a part of some really cool events, whether that be conference championships or really big games on a Saturday at home during the fall or on the road. Like that's, I think nowadays how you have a really good college experience.
Well, some people had a really good college experience going to being a part of whatever club they were in, which I know you probably weren't a club guy, Eddie.
I don't know what that means.
Fraternities are basically clubs.
Yeah, fraternities are clubs. Like, engineering club or I can't even remember what they call those, but, all the chalk writing you would see on campus, like come to this meeting for this club. Did they still do chalk writing when you were in school?
They still
do.
We
would get the nearest faucet and just completely eliminate it from the from the ground. Go around with a water hose.
You were hating on the Asian club? Is that what was going on?
Yeah, we were always, especially the Asian club. It was, certainly a situation that it could be seen as bullying these days, but we were actually encouraging. No, I'm just kidding. I know what you mean.
Ryan Burroughs wants to have a talk with you. All right.
Yeah, that's not a good situation.
No, that's not good. Okay, so we're way off track now. Somehow this turned into a Kill Tony episode. So, yeah, I mean, I think, but back to OU stuff. I mean, it's still, you know what keeps coming to my mind is like, OU had 2 of the best transfer portal defensive lines almost on their roster. Like, that's how well they finished on that side. And
even if they get Huntington, based on threes rankings, it would be a pretty big win.
Oh, yeah,
to get a guy
still
like
a good
that.
haul, yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
there was other
probably
better guys out there. OU was just never really involved because I don't think that they can offer what, I don't know where like the Barrow kid from Michigan State, that just was never going to be an option.
It went to Miami.
Right. But I'm saying I just don't think that was ever an option in terms of what Oklahoma was looking for. Like it didn't fit their need.
Well, I think they would have taken him. I don't think Barrow was too interested in Oklahoma. Like, I mean,
that's what I'm saying.
Yeah, like he had kind of a list before he. Same with the other kid from Michigan State, Derek Harmon. He kind of had a list. He ended up at Oregon. Like, I think those 2 guys OU would have certainly have taken, but they just were never really involved.
And you know what? Also, it kind of tells you. It's just like with Lole. Like, these are guys that are coming from college football programs where they know if they don't play extremely well, they can get beat out by somebody. So they're looking for, like, I think a lot of these guys, they don't want to go where there's a Dominic Williams. Like, they want to go somewhere where there isn't, like where they can be the stars. Like, they know it's important because the margin of error for guys at that position is really thin. Like, to be a JT Terry or, to be a Marcus Strong, not to rip on anybody, because, I mean, you're talking about a guy that's still developing, but they both look the part when you see them out there. One guy just makes more plays than the other, and he's proven to make more plays.
Talking about Terry.
Right, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I think that's a good point. And I think the thing that OU's been kind of trying to find the balance of is like they like the parts they have. So do you bring on a guy like an Aiden Huntington to take up maybe snaps from an Ashton Sanders or a Marcus Strong or David Stone or whoever on that list? And so it's trying to find a balance. And also I think OU's done a pretty good job of saying these are the guys that we want, and if we could get them, great. If not, then we're not going to just go chase these other guys. Whereas I think LSU has kind of found themselves in a pickle where they've tried to get in on every single guy and spread themselves too thin instead of just saying, okay, let's just focus our attention on one or two guys, try and get them, and then maybe add more later, because they've just swung and missed on everybody so far.
And I know that like playing 6 guys or the 6-man rotation is something that they want to do throughout the season, but when it comes to nut cutting time and you need a stop against whoever, Texas, Missouri, LSU, Alabama, Tennessee, whatever, you're probably going to be looking at about 3 or 4 guys out there, and probably 2.
It's going to be Dominic Williams and DJ Terry.
Sure.
Yeah, but it's this way too. Like if you had Jermaine Lole, that's also insurance in case you do have an injury to DJ Terry or you do have an injury to a Dominic Williams. I mean, knock on wood.
Right, and that's why I think this Aiden Huntington kid would be a nice pickup just because he's played a lot of football. And I think that's their biggest holdup right now at OU is they're saying we just need guys that have played some real football, even if it's at a school like Louisiana Monroe, because you just can't replicate some of that experience. And I think that's what they're banking on. Maybe Aiden Huntington doesn't ever play a snap for OU, but to know that you have a guy on roster that's played some football and has done it at a pretty high level. I mean, you read his stats last year were pretty impressive.
It's kind of like it reminds me of to me, he sounds a lot like, what was it? The Jefferson guy from Tulane that was a transfer that we thought, he could be a real
Jeffrey
difference.
Johnson.
Jeffrey Johnson.
Jeffrey Johnson.
Yeah, like he was a good player. He's fine, but he wasn't like a difference maker. I mean, that's what I kind of envision in my head, this guy from ULM being.
Yeah. I think that's probably about right. We'll see. I think it's just. I think the way that it was phrased to me is Brent Venables and this Oklahoma staff. If they can get a defensive lineman, if they can add to that room, they are always going to do it. Like they are always going to take bodies there because they know that they have to have a lot of guys up front on defense, even if it's not huge difference makers. They need bodies up front. And so that's their approach to this.
Well, and it fits, guys, because you look at recruiting. Like I keep getting people asking me, like, how many defensive tackles are they going to take? They've got 2 commitments already in Kamori Moore and Trent Wilson, and they're heavily involved with 3 other guys. Like, are they really going to take 5 defensive tackles? I don't think so, but I'm certainly not sure of it. Like, I mean, they're going to just stock bodies for that front line as much as they possibly can.
I gotta think it's one of those things too, where it's like Todd Bates can just go to Brent Venables and say, "I need more. I need more." Like, and Brent's just like, "Yeah, we could use as many of those guys as we can get."
I think Brent's also going to Bates and saying, "Get another one." I think it's going both ways. Like I think Brent is very much someone that's like,
with what we know about how active he was with Dominic Williams.
Yeah.
He wants defensive linemen, and I mean, what was the comment that was told to us? It's like, there's a lot of positions that they feel pretty good about, but Brent can never have too many defensive linemen.
Yep.
I think that's what he learned at Clemson.
Sure.
I think
100%.
Compared to his time at Clemson and Oklahoma, I think when he realized when you have 4 first-rounders on your defensive line, that's what makes your defense better than anything else that you can possibly do.
Yeah, I mean, look, say whatever Go ahead, Josh.
I was going to say, for this is, I don't know, maybe I shouldn't tell this story, but I'll tell it. I think it's past the statute of limitations. So years ago, Brent's at Clemson, and he was in on Rashawn Gary, kid that ended up going to Michigan, was a first-round pick, a really good college player. Well, the night before signing day, it's like Michigan or Clemson. It's going to be one of the two. Everybody knows it. Brent hits me up and is like, "What are you hearing? You hearing anything?" And I'm like, "I haven't recovered Rashawn Gary in 8 months, but let me check around for you the night before signing day." Like that. That's just, I mean, that's what we're talking about. Like, he is always defensive line. He knows, man. There's no replicating that. Like, if you've got that position handled and you've got a quarterback, you're going to be pretty good almost regardless of what else is out there.
You can play any coverage in the secondary you want if you've got 4 guys that can pressure the quarterback on their own.
That's what I was about to say is, like, say what you want about this staff, and we'll see if it works out in the long term. They know what positions it takes to win at a very high level, and that's what they have put an emphasis on in their recruiting, whether it's in high school or the portal. They have been all in on and we've talked – you guys have talked about it for forever. I mean, I remember when I covered the team for the school newspaper, it was always like, well, they just don't have the guys up front on defense. And now all of a sudden, I don't know if they're there yet, but they are trending in that direction. They at least know, and they're putting the emphasis on getting those type of guys.
Look, it is everything. It is like, go back to the Mike Stoops, go back to Julian Wilson Baylor, like go back to the fans being pissed off that Mike Stoops is playing, defensive backs 10 yards off the line of scrimmage. The reason he did that is because they didn't have a defensive line, and he was trying to cover up for it. If you have a defensive line, you can play press coverage all you want. Your guy gets beat. There's probably not a great chance the quarterback's ever going to have enough time to, drop that in the bucket to the guy 40 yards down the field. I mean, it just covers up everything defensively.
And it's funny because you watch, like, from a distance USC during this portal cycle, and they have not been able to get any defensive linemen up front. Like
they paid Bear Alexander all the money.
I know, and it's just and I think Lincoln gets, like, I don't think Lincoln's stupid. He knows they need to be better up front defensively, but like for some reason he just cannot get those guys.
Well, I think it's pretty hard sell, don't you think? I mean, and we'll see what the UCLA guy that's coming in will be able to do with them defensively, but I think it's a pretty tough sell when the book is pretty out there on Lincoln Riley and what he thinks of that side of the football.
And that's the interesting part with Oklahoma is, like, they're selling it on the Clemson success.
Yeah.
And so they, like, and at some point, Josh has talked about this, like, at some point they need to start selling it on the Oklahoma success.
Right.
So they need a DJ Terry or a Dominic Williams. I think getting Jonah Lawalu drafted this last year was a huge step in the right direction for them.
Sure. I mean, and it's 100%. And it's something that has been, I think that they were in such a bad way too, that it feels like they've started to dig themselves out. And if you could really strike with somebody like if DJ Terry were to have a phenomenal season, or if you got some growth out of somebody like a Grayson Halton, or, the obvious guys with the freshmen, all of a sudden you're not going to have to, when you bring these guys in for recruiting trips, show them Clemson tape as opposed to what you just said.
Well, like, if you could get DJ Terry drafted next year, which might be tough just because he's a 6-year guy and he's going to be older. But, like, if you could get him drafted, or you get a Dominic Williams either next year or in a year or two, in 2 years, drafted on day 2, that would be huge in terms of momentum and getting, some of those higher ranked recruits, because they're getting them even without that. But, like, if you can start pinpointing the Oklahoma success and not just Clemson, I think then you're really cooking.
I Josh, I know you got to probably get out of here pretty quick, but it is interesting because I think this was the best defensive tackle portal activity that we've seen, in a while, in the spring especially.
Particularly after all the guys that we thought that were going to enter from A&M just never did.
Yeah. But is there something about, edge rushers that, that's a little bit different from the interior guys? Because I don't really know. I mean, OU signed Rondell Bothroyd, and they thought, that's going to be a really good signing. And look at his numbers. He was just, he was okay. He was solid.
Another guy.
But he wasn't a difference maker. And you look at Oklahoma, and obviously, I'm not saying that Brent's ever going to be happy with anything, but there was never an urgency. Like, that they feel like they have that. And maybe you could include, I think just high school wise, you got PJ there. You got guys coming in. Ethan Downs has been good. You think R. Mason Thomas is going to be healthy and looking good. But I don't know. Does this signal, Josh, to you that, like, they feel comfortable about their edge rushers? That's going to develop into what they need?
I think it does, and I think
not
your
that there were
point, though,
guys
is
out
right,
there,
though.
for them to get.
Yeah,
that
exactly. That's part of it. Is it was just limited by the supply. There wasn't a lot out there. That same reason, got an argument with some the other day. They're like, well, they didn't take anybody in the offensive line. They clearly feel good about that. No, like that. I mean,
just not
on the offensive line, but offensive tackle. Yeah, and I'm like, that doesn't mean that. That just means there was nobody that was going to improve what they have. So, and it was just an awful spring for that. I mean, there were guys getting offers that were fringy G5 starters, and you're like, that's a bad deal. But I do. I mean, I think there is some indication that they do feel good about what they've got on the edge. And, I've joked around with the guys during that live chat they did the other day. I think it's an interesting debate between defensive end and defensive tackle, like what group you feel better about, where you think that kind of is, especially with the departure of Lole, where I think I would have leaned tackle before that. Now, there's a little bit of question at tackle as far as kind of the rotation and how they make that work, but they've got there's plenty of reason to feel good with the growth of Jaden Jackson. Obviously, we know David Stone's a huge talent. And then I don't know if there's a more overlooked guy on the roster than DJ Terry. He's not a superstar, but he's a much more solid player than I think he gets credit for. He's what coaches want. He's consistent. They know every single snap what they're going to get out of that guy. And I think that has a lot of value. So, I think more than anything, it's about supply. But, guys, I think it would have taken a fairly substantial defensive end going in the portal for Oklahoma to really make a move, because they have a lot of experience. They have a lot of guys that they feel good about giving snaps to. And
they brought in the Woolard guy already.
Yeah, and you talk about PJ, like there's a point there where you bring in somebody else, you're taking snaps away from this extremely talented guy who has a chance to be your best probably best defensive lineman, period, in the next 2 years. But do you want to run that risk and upset the apple cart? I wouldn't personally, but especially with what they have already.
I think there's a lot of belief that PJ can be a dude this year. Like, I think that's part of it. Is like they really think that PJ by the end of the season could be their best pass rusher. Like, I think that's a thing. And I think also too, R. Mason Thomas. I mean, all we heard last year was how good he was in fall camp and that he was their best pass rusher and all these things, and he just was hurt all year. So if you can get him healthy, I think you feel really good. And you know what you got in Ethan Downs, and he seems to just get better every single year. And so I think you feel really good about that edge group. And you got two young guys in Nigel Smith and Danny Okoye, who we haven't really talked a ton about, and maybe they don't play a ton next year, but you feel really good about the ceiling of those two guys in the future. So I think that edge room's got a lot of talent.
Yeah, I would say the one thing out of the spring for me, and I think it's just because we like the kid so much, and he's done a couple of Zooms with us, but like I really wanted to hear like, oh, Danny Okoye is just tearing it up out there. But I think it's the homeschool thing. It's he's got so much to learn. His head is spinning. I think the light will eventually click on for him, and it'll be sudden with him. I think more than anybody.
I think it's one of those things too that like let's check back after the summer.
Yeah.
I think there's so much that gets thrown at these guys during the spring. It almost, I guess, to a certain extent, makes what Jaden Jackson and even David Stone, to a certain extent, even more special about them coming in and being able to pick it up from day one and look like it's just a seamless transition from, somewhat of a veteran guy in Jacob Lacey to obviously true freshman.
I think for those two, it's a little bit also what it was with Akinkumi, where they were in a program above the high school level. Yeah. Like they are just more advanced.
Well, and it might just be as simple, too, as you're talking about interior guys as opposed to everything that they asked some of those outside guys to do, like Okoye is going to be asked to do eventually.
Because we saw David Stone at times, even going against the offensive line that's not considered elite, like he's not there strength-wise yet. Like he can still get he can throw his bull rush at somebody. Sometimes it goes nowhere. He just gets stacked up and stuck in his tracks.
I could see Danny Okoye next year being like that guy on like kickoff or like punt and just going down and just hitting the shit out of someone.
As long as he's not back catching or having to be asked to field kickoffs, like they had. Who was it in Lawrence?
Oh, was it R. Mason?
Yeah, no, it wasn't R. Mason.
It was Ethan, wasn't it?
No.
Or he had that.
I keep wanting to say
picked
Kenneth
up
Mann. I know it's not Kenneth Mann, though.
Was it a
Gosh.
linebacker?
No, it was a defensive end. It was a
thought it
defensive
was
end
Arnold
slash
Eason.
linebacker.
I thought it was Ethan Downs.
No, it wasn't Ethan Downs. I know that. I don't remember. Stupid point.
But no, I know what you're saying. But Danny Okoye could
That
be
game
like,
was hard. It's hard to remember anything from that game because you just want to forget it so hard.
now I got to look it up. But I could see Okoye being like Ronell Lewis, like just on kickoff, like just going down and just hitting the hell out of someone. Him or Lewis Carter could do that too.
Can you even do that?
There's a lot of comparison there. And like I would say even the gap where, for those that don't remember, Ronell Lewis played 8-man football until his senior
Yes.
year of high school.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then Dewar jumped up. I would still say the jump from a competitive level was bigger for Danny Okoye. Like I mean, I saw Danny Okoye play some games. I saw him practice. The best players he saw were in practice, and it's not even close. So I think that there's a huge learning curve. But again, I think he has as much potential as any player from that 2024 class. So people that are like, oh, I was hoping to hear his name more. I am sure his head was absolutely swimming. So just give him time. He's going to be more than fine. And guys, I do kind of need to go, but I wanted to ask you a question. The SEC Unfiltered guys, I don't know if you guys have been on with them a little bit. I've done some stuff with them in the past. They had an interesting question this week, and they were talking about they were talking about stretches in the season, and they were talking about Tennessee, Auburn, and Texas kind of being Oklahoma's make or break section of the schedule. I look at that, and then I look at Missouri, Alabama, and LSU. Like, which of those would you argue is more key for Oklahoma? Like, I could see the latter part of the schedule as Oklahoma's young team kind of rounds into form. Like, I don't know. Like, I could see something there where you argue and look back and say that's where this team kind of figured it all out.
It might be a negative way to look at it, but I think it's the front part of that schedule that is the biggest, because if things get sideways, all of a sudden you're having to dig out of a hole rather than, turn it on at the right time or find a way to navigate that early portion of the schedule and then win some games that maybe you are going to be true underdogs at on the back end, whether it be Missouri or LSU or wherever. I think it's very, very important. And specifically, I think it's extremely important to not just win the Tennessee game, but the week after as you head out to Auburn for the first time in what will be Jackson Arnold's first road game ever as a true starting quarterback. I know he played at Provo. I think as much as we love the trip to Salt Lake City and Provo, I think it's going to be a little bit different when you head out to Auburn to make that start at the beginning of the season.
Yeah, I think you look at the schedule and like Eddie said, if you want to hit that 7.5 number, the over on that, they need to probably start 5-0.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, Josh, we'll let you get out of here.
All right, guys.
We will finish up with a little bit. I know Eddie's got something he's been tracking. We haven't really given any love to OU men's golf this year.
Yeah, been the regional final day of the regionals going on right now out in Rancho Santa Fe, California.
They're in first.
They're in first
as we speak. Right
they have
now.
the best round of the day, and it would be the best round of the tournament for any team in a stacked regional out there.
So when did this start and when does it end?
Monday, today.
It ends
yeah,
today.
They got roughly 7 holes left.
Yeah.
Wow.
But it would take a drastic
Meltdown.
bad meltdown for them not to advance to the NCAA championships in 2 weeks at La Costa in California, the new home of the NCAA men's and women's championship. They're not at Greyhawk anymore in Arizona. But if just getting this group there, not to say that's like the goal, obviously winning a national championship and stuff like that is the goal, but this regional was stacked, and you started the day in 5th. They've skyrocketed in themselves. They're 10 under for the day. 2 under now leads the regional. And OU's in really good shape to advance to the NCAA championships yet again under Ryan Hibble. And I guess the kind of the underlying storyline now developing out of Rancho Santa Fe this afternoon is Ben Lorenz is now in the individual. He's in the lead of the individual player leaderboard at 6 under. He has a 1-shot lead over Samson Zhang from Cal and Andy Zhu from San Diego. And Jonas Baumgartner's 3-back, Oklahoma State. Pretty good. Really good, actually. Be fantastic.
I really want to see this thing they're installing. Is it still the Charlie Coast Center?
Yeah, they're just renovating
Even
it.
renovating. I want to see this thing Brad Dahlke was talking about on Family Business, the green that can morph and change the shape and stuff.
I want to say that Arizona State has something similar to that at their golf center out in Phoenix or Scottsdale.
Arizona
Tempe,
State might miss the
wherever
cut.
hell. Yeah, which is it would be like, I don't know, it'd be like a top 3 seed in the NCAA tournament not making it out of the first round. It's a pretty big upset if they don't get back
Almost
into
a
it.
16-1 situation.
Yeah, something like that. The good news for Arizona State is they got some holes to work with. They're at 13 over right now. North Florida's at 11 over. That's very, very, very doable. Even Washington at 15 over isn't completely out of the woods yet. So top 5 make it. Oklahoma in first place. Cal, Oklahoma State's in third at 4 over, tied with West Virginia, and North Florida's at plus 11. So North Florida team's supposed to be really good.
All right, well, congratulations almost to Ryan Hibble and the OU golf team.
They should make top 5, though, and that's the name of the game. Just get to the NCAA championships, and then you get to stroke play, and you try to make it to the top 8. I think they've made it in the top 8 into match play at the NCAA championships. I want to say it's the second longest streak in college golf. It might even be first. I think they've made it the last 12 years.
Wow.
Or 10 years, something like that.
Well, a lot of stuff coming up this week, of course. Eddie, any update on the weather in Cincinnati? Are the Sooners going to be able to get anything in?
I think that they're in the clear. The last I saw this morning, it looked like it was going to be a little bit better over the course of the next couple of days. I think it's just hit and miss, which doesn't make it the most accommodating thing in the entire world. There's an 80% chance of storms on Friday and a 60% chance of storms, scattered storms on Saturday. So I guess the good news is they're going to be playing baseball tomorrow at 4:00 in Cincinnati. 4:00 start on Friday and 11 a.m. start on Saturday. And I'm pretty sure that you have to get everything in on Saturday. I don't think games can be played on Sunday this week with the Big 12 tournament starting next Tuesday down in Arlington.
All right, and then, of course, softball coming up on Friday. They will start the regional at Loves Field. Loves Field's first regional, so that should be a lot of fun. It'll be interesting, too, because...
What time do they play?
7:00 Friday night. The first game out of the gate
crazy.
at Loves Field is Oregon and Boston. That's at like 4:00 on Friday.
Now, is Oregon's head coach still the
Yes.
former assistant?
Yeah,
Patty?
Melissa
Yes.
Lombardi.
Yep.
Took over for Mike White. Is that his name? Texas coach?
Yes.
Mike White? Yeah.
Our favorite coach.
I like him. I know OU fans don't like him. He seems like a fun guy, though. Anybody that gives the middle finger in the middle of a softball field and knowing that the cameras are on him, I kind of like it.
So, yeah, a lot of stuff coming up. You've got a brand new stickball report that came out just yesterday on YouTube. You go check that out with Bob and Eddie talking about all the latest from the baseball diamond and the softball diamond. So tons of stuff out there, and we'll continue to bring you the latest. We got a family business, as I said, with Alex Duraco coming up that will air tomorrow. And then do we want to do another live stream this week? Are we down? Thursday?
Sure. I'm cool with that.
Yeah.
I don't have anything going on.
5 o'clock?
Sure.
Planning
let's do
right
it.
here.
We'll just watch the baseball game as it's going on
That'll be
during
good.
the live stream.
Nice. We can do that. All right. So that's going to do it for us this week. Appreciate everybody listening. And don't forget, you can sign up at Soonerscoop.com. It's $1. Use that promo code OU1 since this is broadcasting on YouTube. We'll give you the YouTube exclusive deal. Use that promo code OU1, just $1. You get 2 months for free for first-time subscribers. So go take advantage of that. Recruiting going on. You're going to want to know all the latest information as Josh continues to pump that out day after day, especially with all the visits that he's making right now. And stay up the latest on the message boards, off-season football, everything going on there. So thanks, everybody, for listening. We'll be back again next week for another edition of the Unofficial 40 podcast right here on Soonerscoop.com.